from the Denver Broncos Media Center, welcome to Broncos Country Tonight with Ryan Edwards and Steve Atwater.
Welcome to Broncos Country Tonight. We have a lot to get to tonight as we're obviously going to break down what the Broncos did against Seattle, where we stand with the current quarterback competition, as well as some observations on the defense. And to help me do that, the one and only Steve Atwater, Hall of Famer in studio. What up, Steve?
What up, R. Edwards?
It's good to have you here, man.
Hey, it's good to be here.
What did you think about the performance against the Seattle Seahawks? I tell you what, here, the preseason, outscoring your opponents 63-9. You had no penalties in that game. You won the turnover margin by +3. It's hard to come away from that game ultimately very disappointed in anything, maybe a little bit of special teams, but, I mean, overall, pretty good performance.
Yeah, the outcome was great, but when you dig a little deeper into the film, we still got some work to do. That offensive line, I was a little bit disappointed in the offensive line, just, with some of the sacks with Drew Lock, them just not being as physical as they need to be, not staying low when they're coming off the ball. But other than that, yeah, it was a good outcome. Royce Freeman played well. I thought, Teddy Bridgewater came out through some really good passes. Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, those guys still, man, top notch.
And absolutely. And the thing about it
is,
and
the one offensive line, too. They did great.
The first-team offensive line, first-team defense was fantastic. You got the interception on the first drive. Again, you got a fumble recovery on a sack. You had another interception later on with Deshaun Williams. The thing that you really have to be impressed with is the guys that are making this roster all made plays in the game, including even Bradley Chubb had a sack in there.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's good to have a roster full of players, playmakers who can make plays at any time. We got a deep roster. We've been saying that, I think, all preseason. Now, you look at the roster, we got some great guys, but we just got to stay healthy. If we stay healthy, I think we can win a lot of football games this year.
All right, so let's dial in on the quarterbacks. A lot of people want to talk about what's going on with the quarterbacks. And when we're recording this as we speak, we don't know who the starter is going to be. That could be announced at any point this week, or it could be something that they carry into the next preseason game. But let's start with the quarterbacks and what you saw. You said Teddy Bridgewater made some nice plays out there. I thought he benefited a little bit from situational moments in the game. Going forward on fourth down as often as they did, especially the 4th and 5 at the Seattle 40. I don't know if that's something you're necessarily going to do in season, but again, it shows confidence in your squad that you can do that. And they got a big play to Jerry Jeudy on that 4th and 5. So I think that there's a lot of value to do something like that, even if it's not something you do in the regular season.
Yeah, I agree. I thought he also threaded the needle on that pass to Saubert. Ran right down there. He threaded the needle.
That was his best pass.
That was a great pass, right on the rope. And I thought he did a good job. I thought the offense did a good job of just rallying and protecting him and keeping a clean pocket. The one pass where he was over on the right side and threw it back across to the left, I think it was to Royce Freeman. That was a great pass, great awareness, knowing where your outlet was, where his outlet was. So I thought that whole first team, they look solid.
Okay, so then let's go to Drew Lock, and then we'll kind of come back and look at the group as they stand right now through training camp and preseason. So what was your impression of Drew Lock's performance?
Well, he didn't play as well, obviously, but a lot of that had to do, just like it did last year, with the offensive line not protecting as well as they could have. I saw Netani Moody in there. I just didn't see him. He wasn't as dominant as I had seen him in past games, but in pass protection, I've heard that's probably his weakness is, sometimes it can be a weakness for him, the pass protection. But, 94 for the Seahawks, he was bringing the noise, and he made it very difficult for our offensive linemen. So, I was a little bit disappointed just about how the defensive linemen were able to get up on Drew Lock so quickly. That put pressure on him, didn't make Drew Lock feel confident stepping up in the pocket. So I don't think we got a good view of what Drew Lock really is like, because when you pressure like that, you're trying to survive.
Well, and that was the very first drive. I mean, you think about that. You come in cold to a game, and sometimes that's going to happen, by the way. You can be a backup or whatever. You're going to come in cold to a game. And the very first couple of plays, you have a handoff, and then you have back-to-back sacks, including one where you fumble the ball. He got the ball back. He's got to do a better job on that. But, again, we can point to the offensive line as the primary reasons for those sacks. So then you have to come back out. What was impressive to me is the response to that. And it's always the response. and it was what he did in that 2-minute drill, a little over a minute, but he had 2-minute drill right before halftime. He ends up getting points, and he made some really good decisions. He had a great pass on 3rd and 5 to Deontay Spencer on the deep over.
Yeah.
Later on, he had an opportunity to maybe hit a check down with like 14 seconds left. If he would have done that, they didn't have any timeouts. It possibly would have run down the clock. Instead, he threw it out of bounds, saved the 3. He protected the 3 points. So I'm just saying we're seeing some of the maturity that we wanted to see from Drew.
Yeah, and that's to be expected. Going into your 3rd year, you got to be making better decisions with the football. And, like you said, him throwing the ball out of bounds versus trying to throw the ball down the field and having the time run out. That shows that he's maturing, and we definitely want to see more of that as the season goes on.
Okay, so where do we sit today? Again, recording this when we are, don't know necessarily what the ultimate decision or when they're going to announce a starter. Could be this week. They could decide to go through the Rams game. I threw that out on Twitter. I thought the idea is if it really is that close, if there are people inside the building that are really split on this, then maybe just allow for this to run into the preseason. I don't think this is such a bad thing to run through the 3rd preseason game, in my opinion.
Well, I got to be honest. I did this idea here is not my idea. I listened to Nick Ferguson. He was doing an interview with Phil Milani, and I think this is the best situation, although the media here, we won't like it. But does it make sense to announce it, or does it make sense to let our opponents for the first game, that's the Jets, right?
The Giants.
Does it make sense for the Giants to just have to wait and prepare for 2 quarterbacks? I think that's the smart thing to do. It may not be best for us, but in terms of, not giving them an edge, having them, making their preparation a little bit harder, I wouldn't be upset if that happened.
Okay, let me ask you from, I guess, a little bit of a devil's advocate position of what does that mean for the locker room? What does that mean for the prep? People have said for a little while, fans and media alike, that there's a anticipation of having the starter out there working with the ones, getting the reps in, getting ready for the season, visualizing what you're going to be. Now, I guess you could know that internally and not necessarily announce it, but there's something to be said for that, isn't it?
I definitely think so, but you kind of got to weigh that with your strategy. Is your strategy more important to where you want to keep those guys off balance, or do you want to make everybody feel nice, comfy, and cozy and just know without a doubt who the quarterback is? Now, I would imagine that they have a good idea of who they're going to go with already.
I agree.
I think they know, but we don't know. And when we turn on the film, we have ideas about where the quarterback should have gone with the ball, what reads he should have made, what the progression should have been like, but we don't really know. We're just got to go by what we see. But when they turn on that film, they know, and they know who's been playing consistent, good football, and who has not been playing consistent football, and who they have an idea who they can win with, and I think that's going to be the most important decision. Who do they feel like they can win with?
I think that's exactly right. And a good reminder, I think, for everybody as they're watching this, that what we see in the practice field, what we see in the preseason games is still only pieces of the puzzle. It's not the entire thing. We don't know what happens in the classroom. We don't know what happens inside the building. The way that those guys are handling themselves and operating inside the locker room, we don't know those things. So
right.
we're guessing on those portions based on everything we know and whatever sources we have. So it's a great point that you made there. I want to get to the defense, though, before we get out of here. On the defensive side of the ball, who jumped out to you in the game?
Well, Justin Simmons,
interception on the first drive.
Interception.
Makes it look easy, doesn't he?
Yeah. Oh, always. And then Coop,
Jonathon Cooper.
His motor is amazing for his size. And I think because of the situation with his heart, I think that's why he was a lower draft pick than he was. But, man, I love his game. He's got the motor. He's got the size. He's got that mentality. I love it all.
Yeah, I do wonder, and we haven't seen a lot of it. We will have an opportunity because I assume makes the roster to see him against higher level competition. But the thing is it was start to finish. When he got out there, he made an impact. He had the sack fumble.
Yep.
He had a batted pass that ended up drive. He ended up later with the fourth down sack. And we've seen that throughout training camp. He has been consistently good every time he hits the field. I thought into the secondary, you mentioned Justin Simmons. I thought, Michael Ojemudia unfortunately got a little bit banged up in that, but he had a chance at a pick six. That's something that when he gets back on the field, he's got to find a way to clean up. Yeah,
no, as a cornerback, you got to make those plays. Well, really, as any defensive back. But, I got to kind of hush up when we talk about those plays.
What are you saying
Too many interceptions back in the day. So I give them, I have a little bit of mercy on them.
That's awesome.
But also, I want to give the D-line some credit, too, man.
Yeah.
They look great, man.
Deshaun Williams played great. He had the fumble recovery. He had the interception. And then, again, a guy that's definitely making this roster. They were good against the run. Starters, second-team defensive line. McTelvin Agim had a couple of plays out there. Now, I mean, there's a lot to like about this. Even if it is preseason, I think we can all kind of point to the strides and the depth that this team currently has.
Yeah. And, looking at the secondary, seeing how well they played together, with the adjustments, having all the veterans on the field, having Ronald Darby out there, Kyle Fuller, Justin Simmons, Kareem Jackson, just seeing how they communicated. They were right on point, man, and that was a beautiful thing to see.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate that.
Thank you, R.
You join me. We're going to have more of Steve Atwater on our radio show, BroncosCountryTonight.com. Check it out. For Benjamin Albright, who's not here, we appreciate it. For Steve Atwater, I'm Ryan Edwards. Thanks for watching Broncos Country Tonight.